There's a certain kind of person who always says yes. They smile when they want to cry. They agree when every part of them wants to refuse. They nod, they comfort, they help, even when it hurts. To the outside world, they look kind, dependable, maybe even selfless. But beneath that politeness often lives something heavier: exhaustion, resentment, and a quiet ache that whispers, "When is it my turn?" Psychologists call it people-pleasing, but that phrase doesn't capture the depth of it. This isn't just about manners or kindness. It's survival. It's what happens when saying no once led to punishment, rejection, or love being withdrawn. Somewhere in their past, these people learned that the safest way to exist was to be agreeable, to anticipate what others wanted before they asked, to make themselves easy to love by never being a burden. And so, they become experts at reading rooms, decoding moods, managing emotions that aren't theirs. They say yes not because they want to, but because saying no feels dangerous. It feels like abandonment, like failure, like being unworthy. So they overextend, overcommit, overgive, not out of generosity, but out of fear. Over time, this turns into an invisible contract. If I keep everyone happy, maybe no one will leave. But love built on performance is fragile. The more they please others, the more they disappear. They start to forget what they even want. They lose their voice in the noise of approval. And yet, when they finally begin to feel the weight of that silence, when the smile starts to feel heavy, they realize something heartbreaking: that always saying yes doesn't create peace. It just hides the pain better. To understand people who can't say no, you have to look at where they learned that yes was safer. Many grew up in homes where boundaries didn't exist, where love had to be earned. Maybe their parents fought often and they became the peacemaker. Maybe affection was given only when they performed well, behaved well, or didn't cause problems. For them, saying no wasn't just rude, it was risky. This is called fawning, one of the lesser-known trauma responses. While fight and flight are visible, fawning hides behind politeness. It's the nervous system's way of keeping you safe through compliance. When danger meant conflict, pleasing became protection. The body learned that peace only lasted if you surrendered your needs. And as adults, they carry that programming into every relationship. They agree to things they don't want. They accept apologies they shouldn't. They stay in conversations that drain them, in jobs that burn them out, in dynamics that slowly erode their joy. Because setting boundaries feels like breaking trust. But the cruel irony is that the more they say yes, the more disconnected they become, not just from others, but from themselves. They start to feel invisible even in rooms full of people. They wonder why no one ever checks in on them, why no one notices their exhaustion. But how could anyone notice a need you've trained yourself to hide? People who can't say no aren't weak, they're wounded. They learned that self-abandonment was the price of belonging. But healing begins the moment they realize that saying no isn't rejection, it's truth. The psychology behind people who can't say no is rooted in fear-based empathy. These are individuals whose nervous systems are hyper-attuned to other people's emotions. They sense discomfort like heat. They can't ignore it. If someone is upset, they feel responsible. If someone is disappointed, they feel guilty. Their mind starts racing. Did I do something wrong? Should I fix this? This kind of empathy often comes from emotional enmeshment, when a child grows up absorbing everyone else's feelings, never knowing where they end and others begin. As adults, this turns into chronic overfunctioning. They take responsibility for everyone's happiness. They apologize too much. They over-explain. They shrink themselves so others can feel comfortable. But beneath that constant yes is often resentment, a soft, silent anger toward a world that keeps taking and never giving back. Yet they rarely express it because anger feels unsafe. So they smile instead. They keep helping. They convince themselves that being needed is the same as being loved. The cost is enormous. Every unspoken no builds into burnout. Every swallowed feeling hardens into emotional fatigue. They start losing joy in even the things they used to love, because life begins to feel like a never-ending list of obligations. What's tragic is that people who can't say no often attract those who can't hear it. The more they overgive, the more they're surrounded by takers, until one day something inside them breaks, not in anger, but in exhaustion. That's the moment when healing begins. Healing the inability to say no isn't about becoming cold or selfish. It's about reclaiming your right to exist without permission. It starts small, with noticing the body's signals, the tightness in your chest when you agree too quickly, the fatigue after spending time with certain people, the quiet whisper in your mind that says, I don't want this. Saying no begins internally, long before it's spoken. It's the moment you decide that your peace matters as much as someone else's approval. It's recognizing that boundaries aren't walls, they're doors. They don't shut people out, they show who deserves to walk in. Therapists describe this as boundary reparenting, learning to give yourself the protection you never had. It's uncomfortable at first. The guilt feels unbearable. You'll worry people will leave. Some might, but the ones who truly love you won't vanish when you stop sacrificing yourself. They'll adjust, they'll understand, and they'll stay. And little by little, you begin to realize that every no creates space for a more honest yes. That peace doesn't come from pleasing, it comes from presence, from showing up as your full, truthful self without apology. Eventually, people who learn to say no discover something profound. They never needed to earn love. They only needed to allow it. True love, true friendship, true belonging. None of it demands your exhaustion. It simply asks for your honesty. When you stop performing, life starts to breathe again. The relationships that remain become deeper, steadier, realer. You start attracting people who respect your edges instead of crossing them. You start building a life that feels lighter because it finally fits. And one day, you'll say no, calmly, clearly, without guilt, and feel something unexpected. Relief. Not fear, not shame, but freedom. The freedom that comes from knowing that you can disappoint others and still be good. You can set limits and still be loved. Because the truth about people who can't say no is that they were never weak. They were too kind for too long. And when that kindness finally turns inward, it doesn't disappear. It transforms. It becomes clarity. It becomes strength. It becomes peace.